You are looking at live video of Pope Francis making his way into St. Patrick's Church. Now, this church is it's connected to the Catholic Charities building, where so much care goes on every day for the poor, the needy, and it's right downtown in Washington, D.C. Monsignor John Ensler, who is runs Catholic Charities, gave us a brief little preview. And in that, he said the Pope will walk through the church here, stop at a chapel, which they built, a brand new chapel, which he'll bless. And you'll see that in moments. And after he blesses the chapel, he's going to make his way out to a tented area where they have hundreds of poor people awaiting lunch. And he's going to either join them for lunch, probably serve a few of them. And again, he's trying to make a point here. This is conveying a message that you can go from the hall of ultimate power politically, the elites. You had wealthy donors, you had congressmen and senators, jurists, leaders of the military, cabinet heads, all assembled to listen to him. Now he goes to the very poor, those with no voice, to be with them. It's not unlike the drop-by by the Little Sisters of the Poor.
Right.
It makes an important message, and we shouldn't forget that, while we parse his words.
Yes, Catholicism is at home everywhere. The poor, the rich, the powerful, the young people. And it's very touching to see the Pope doing this because he's walking through the church first. We have to remember Catholic Charities is motivated by the love of Christ. Christ said, "Whatever you do to the least of my brothers, you did to me." And that was a great thing that Mother Teresa always spoke about. When she served the poor, when she brought them food and healing, she was treating Christ. And that really is a motivator. That we're not simply here to solve a problem, as some people like to look at poverty. Poor people deserve respect and love. There are many reasons why people find themselves in difficulty. We don't come to judge them, as the Pope tells us. We come to help them and show them Christ's love.
The Holy Father making his way down the aisle of St. Patrick's, blessing both parishioners in St. Pat's as well as some clients of Catholic Charities who are allowed a certain number of tickets. But this is a fairly small, select group. I believe he's just going to do a blessing here, and then he'll proceed on. I am Raymond Arroyo, joined by Robert Royal, Father Gerald Murray, and our special guest, Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League, who joined us, met the Pope earlier, and has been taking part. It took a lot to get you out of New York City.
I know. I don't like leaving New York. Let me say something about Catholic Charities. Everybody wants to applaud them. I do too. Why then don't the people who represent the states of Illinois and Massachusetts, for example, reconsider punishing them because they don't approve of gay adoption? You see, this is the game that people are playing. Oh, I'm all in favor of Catholic Charities. Really? Why then do you try and punish them in certain states, and they're threatened in other states as well?
The Pope is actually going to offer an address here at Catholic Charities and the homeless. I now want to, as the Holy Father brings, again, we've seen this time and time again in Cuba, then in Washington, he's bringing a bouquet to this image of Our Lady at St. Patrick's. We now are joined by Congressman Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, who's also going to give us a little reaction from Capitol Hill. Congressman, what did you think? What was the big takeaway as you listened to the Holy Father today?
So, Raymond, as we sat in the chamber, it was pretty neat to see the bipartisan love that members of Congress had for the Pope. So I think people were exhilarated. They were excited to have him address the U.S. Congress, but also the American people from the well of the House of Representatives. Now, listen, I think there was something for everybody in the Pope's speech. Everyone had a little bit, whether you're concerned about the environment, you're concerned about immigration, or marriage, or the family, or abortion. So I think everyone can take a little bit away from this speech, but I thought it was pretty pastoral in its message and in its tone. And what I could appreciate from being inside the chamber was there wasn't a whole lot of politicization of the speech. Yeah, you had some applause and a few times that people stood, but I thought for the most part people took the message for what it was from the leader of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing reception, and I was struck by the reaction. I mean, you had applause and people jumping up at key moments, but there didn't seem to be the edge of political divisiveness that usually exists, and that itself is a minor miracle, Congressman Duffy.
Well, I would agree with you. That is a minor miracle for the House of Representatives along with the Senate. But I think the real politicization of the Pope has come from the media. And if you watch the mainstream media, they'll pick out certain parts of what the Pope says to drive a political agenda that they might have. I mean, you hear a lot about the Pope's message on climate. You hear a lot about his comments about immigration. But rarely do you see the mainstream media make reference to his comment about life and respecting life, and his comments about abortion and about family and marriage, which are really conversations that are at the forefront of the political conversation that we're having today. I will say this, in the chamber, one of the most raucous applauses, though, came when the Pope had his real one line about defending life at all stages. I mean, everyone stood up and applauded that, which was heartfelt.
Very good. What do you make? Some of the media is already reporting that he's urging Congress to find specific remedies to the environment, to migration, very quickly, because we have to go to the Pope live.
Sure, there were no specifics that were offered. He said we need to contemplate it, and I think we do. We got to look out for the downtrodden and the poor among us. But there was no more prescription there as there were for what we do with regard to traditional marriage or for abortion.
Thank you, Congressman Sean Duffy. We will check in with you. Pope Francis now at St. Patrick's Church. We bring this to you live, and we'll be translating.
In English.
Holy Father's greeting the crowd. The first words I wish to say to you is thank you.
The first word I wish to say to you is thank you.
Thank
you for welcoming me.
Thank you for welcoming me and for your efforts to make this meeting possible.
Here,
I think of a person whom I love, someone who is and has been very important throughout my life.
Ha sido sostén y fuente de inspiración.
He has been a support and an inspiration.
Es a él a quien recurro cuando estoy medio apretado.
He is the one I go to whenever I'm in a fix.
Ustedes me recuerdan a San José.
You make me think of Saint Joseph.
Sus rostros me hablan del suyo.
Your faces remind me of his.
En la vida de José hubo situaciones difíciles de enfrentar.
Joseph had to face some difficult situations in his life.
Una de ellas fue cuando María estaba para
One of
dar a
them
luz.
was the time when Mary was about to give birth to Jesus, to have Jesus.
Dice la Biblia, estaban en Belén, le llegó a María el tiempo.
The Bible tells us that while they were in Bethlehem, the time came
Nació su hijo primogénito
for her
y lo
to
envolvió
deliver
en
her
pañales
child.
y lo acostó en el establo porque no había
And she gave
alojamiento
birth
para
to
él.
her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. Reference to the book of Luke.
La Biblia es muy
Just
clara.
hesitating here. The Bible is very clear about this. There was no room for them.
Me imagino a José con su esposa
I can imagine Joseph with his wife about to have a child,
sin casa,
with no
sin
shelter,
alojamiento.
no home, no place to stay.
El Hijo de Dios entró en este mundo
The Son of
como
God
uno que no
came into
tiene
this
casa.
world as a homeless person.
El Hijo de Dios entró como
The Son of God knew.
el Hijo de Dios supo lo que es
The
comenzar
Son of God
la
was
vida
homeless.
sin un techo.
The Son of God knew what it was to start life without a roof over his head.
Podemos imaginar las preguntas de José
We can
en ese
imagine
momento.
what Joseph must have been thinking.
¿Cómo el Hijo de Dios no
How
tiene
is
un
it
techo para
that the
vivir?
Son of God has no home?
¿Por qué estamos sin hogar? ¿Por qué estamos sin un techo?
Why are we homeless? Why don't we have housing?
Son preguntas que muchos de ustedes pueden
There are
hacerse a
questions which
diario.
many of you may ask daily.
Al igual que José, se cuestionan.
Like Joseph,
¿Por qué
like Saint
estamos
Joseph,
sin
you
un
may ask,
techo?
why are we homeless without a place to live?
Y a los que tenemos techo y hogar, son preguntas que nos
These are
harán bien
questions
también.
which all of us might ask, well asked.
¿Por qué estos hermanos nuestros están sin hogar?
Why do these, our
¿Por qué
brothers
estos
and
hermanos
sisters,
nuestros
have no
no
place
tienen
to
techo?
live? Why are these brothers and sisters of ours homeless?
Las preguntas de José siguen presentes hoy,
Joseph's questions are timely even today.
acompañando a todos los que a lo largo
They accompany all of those who
han
throughout
vivido y
history
están
have
sin
been
un hogar.
and are homeless.
José era un hombre que se hizo preguntas,
Joseph's questions are timely even
pero sobre
today.
todo era un hombre de fe. Y fue la fe la que le permitió a José
They accompany all those who throughout
encontrar luz
history
en ese
have been
momento
and are
que
homeless.
parecía todo a oscuras.
Joseph was someone who asked questions, but first and foremost, he was a man of faith.
Fue la
Faith
fe
gave Joseph
la
the
que
power
lo
to find
sostuvo en
light
las
just
dificultades
at
de
the
su
moment
vida.
when everything seemed dark.
Por la fe, José supo salir adelante cuando
Sustained
todo
him amid the troubles of
parecía
life. Thanks to faith, Joseph was able to press forward when everything seemed to be holding him back.
ante situaciones injustas y dolorosas.
In the face of
La fe
unjust and painful
nos aporta
situations,
esa
faith
luz que disipa
brings
la
us the
oscuridad.
light which scatters the darkness.
Al igual que a José, la fe nos abre la presencia
As it did for Joseph, faith
en toda vida, en
makes
toda
us
persona,
open to the quiet
toda
presence of
situación.
God at every moment in our lives.
Él está presente en cada
In
uno
every
de
person
ustedes,
and in
en
every
cada uno de
situation,
nosotros.
God is present in every one of you, in each one of us.
Quiero ser muy claro. No hay ningún motivo.
We can find no social or moral justification,
moral
no
o del
justification
tipo que
whatsoever
para
for lack of housing.
aceptar la falta de alojamiento. Son situaciones
There are many unjust situations, but we know that God is suffering with us, experiencing them
sufriéndolas con nosotros.
at our side.
Está viviéndolas a
He
nuestro
does
lado.
not
No
abandon
nos
us.
deja solos.
He doesn't leave us alone.
Jesús no solo quiso solidarizarse con cada persona,
We know that Jesus wanted to show solidarity with every person.
No solo quiso que nadie sienta o viva la falta de su compañía y de su auxilio y de su amor.
He wanted everyone to experience his companionship, his help, his love.
Él mismo se ha identificado con todos aquellos que sufren, que lloran, que padecen
He identified with all those who suffer, who weep, who suffer any kind of injustice.
Él lo dice claramente. Tuve hambre y me
He tells us this clearly.
Tuve sed y me dieron
I
de
was
beber.
hungry and you
Anduve
gave
como
me food.
forastero y me dieron
I was
alojamiento.
thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me.
Es la fe la que nos hace saber que Dios está con ustedes, que Dios está en medio nuestro.
Faith
y su
makes us know that God is at our side,
nos
that God is in
moviliza
our
a la
midst,
caridad.
and His presence spurs us to charity.
Esa caridad que nace la llamada de un
Charity is
Dios
born of the
que
call
sigue golpeando
of a God
nuestra puerta
who
la puerta de
continues to
todos
knock on our door,
para invitarnos
the door of all people,
a la compasión,
to invite us
la
to love,
entrega de unos
to
por
compassion, to service to one another.
Jesús sigue golpeando nuestras puertas.
Jesus keeps knocking on our doors, the doors of our lives.
No lo hace mágicamente. No lo hace
He doesn't do this by magic with special effects, with flashing lights and fireworks.
Jesús sigue golpeando nuestra puerta
Jesus
en el rostro del
keeps
hermano,
knocking on our door
en el rostro del
in the
vecino,
faces of
en
our
el
brothers
rostro
and
del que está a
sisters,
nuestro lado.
in the faces of our neighbors, in the faces of those at our side.
Queridos amigos, uno de los modos más eficaces de
Dear friends,
que
one of the most
tenemos
effective ways we have to
en la
help
oración.
is that of prayer.
La oración nos une, nos hace hermanos, nos abre el corazón.
Prayer unites. It makes brothers
Una
and
verdad
sisters.
hermosa que a veces olvidamos.
It opens our hearts and reminds us of a beautiful truth which we sometimes forget.
En la oración todos aprendemos a decir Padre,
In prayer,
Papá.
we all learn to say, Father, Papa. We learn
Cuando decimos
to see one
Padre,
another.
Papá, nos encontramos como hermanos. En la oración no hay ricos o pobres.
We learn to see one another as brothers and
hijos y
sisters.
hermanos.
In prayer, there are no rich and poor people. There are only sons and daughters,
Hay fraternidad.
sisters and brothers. In prayer, there is no first or second class. There is
En
brotherhood.
la oración es donde nuestro corazón encuentra fuerza para no
It is in prayer that our hearts find the strength not to be cold and insensitive
situaciones de injusticia.
in the face of injustice.
En la oración Dios nos sigue llamando y levantando a la caridad.
In prayer, God keeps calling us, opening our hearts to charity.
Qué bien nos hace rezar juntos.
How good it is for us to pray
Qué bien
together.
nos hace encontrarnos en ese espacio donde nos miramos como
How good it is to encounter one another in this place.
los unos necesitados del apoyo de los otros.
How good it is for us to encounter each other in this place where we see one another as brothers and sisters, where we realize that we need one another.
Quiero unirme a ustedes porque necesito su apoyo y su cercanía.
Today I want to be with you. I need your support, your closeness.
Quiero invitarlos a rezar juntos los unos por los otros.
I would like to invite you to pray
Los unos
together
con los otros.
for one another, with one another.
Así podemos continuar con este sostén
That way,
que nos ayuda
we
a
can
vivir
keep helping
la
one
alegría
another
que Jesús
to
está en
experience the joy of knowing that Jesus is in our midst.
y que Jesús nos ayude a solucionar las injusticias
Are you ready?
que Él conoció primero.
Jesus will help us to solve injustices. This is first.
La de no tener casa. ¿Se animan a rezar juntos?
Can we pray together?
Yo
Yes.
empiezo en castellano y ustedes siguen en inglés.
I'll pray in Spanish, you
Padre
pray in
nuestro,
English.
que estás en el
Our
cielo,
Father,
santificado.
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Y antes de irme, me gustaría darles la
Before leaving you, I would like to give you God's blessing.
que el Señor los bendiga y los proteja.
The Lord bless you and
Que el
keep you.
Señor los mire con agrado y les muestre su bondad.
The Lord make his face to shine upon you
Que el Señor los mire con amor
and be gracious
y
to
les
you.
conceda
The Lord lift up your countenance, his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Por favor, no se olviden de rezar por
Please, don't forget to pray for me. Thank you. So ends the Holy Father's kind of sweet blessing and message to people gathered here as he makes his way to the outdoor homeless shelter, really. They're having lunch set out for the homeless. As the Pope makes his way, I'm going to have one quick question to Representative Keith Rothfus, who joins us, the Illinois congressman who was in the chamber just moments ago. You saw that speech the Holy Father delivered there to Congress. Congressman Rothfus, your reaction. What did you see? What surprised you most about this papal speech to a joint session of Congress?
I think first and foremost, Raymond, and also it's Pennsylvania that I'm from, and not Illinois, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
just his mere presence in the chamber. This is the 266th Bishop of Rome. You can draw a line of succession all the way back to St. Peter over 2,000 years. This is the first time that we've had Peter's successor come to a joint session of Congress, and it was really electric to have him come into the chamber and to be able to address the Congress in that manner. And to remind us, one of the lines that stood out for me was that the pursuit of the common good should be the aim of all politics.
Yes. What else do you take? What's the lasting message that you'll take from this day as you continue? I mean, the Pope said he wanted to have a dialogue with legislators. What most stands out? What are you taking with you as you begin your work now and continue your workday on the Hill?
Well, one of the anchors of the dialogue is the Golden Rule, which he was very emphatic about. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And he specifically mentioned how that would play out, for example, as we consider issues of human life and the sacredness of human life at every single stage. And I think it was a good lesson for legislators to hear.
Very good. Congressman Keith Rothfus, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll check in with you in the days ahead.
Good to be with you, Raymond. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Good to have you. Thank you. And we're still seeing a wide shot here of St. Patrick's Church. In a moment, we will take you to this homeless gathering. It's attached, Catholic Charities is just attached to the back end of St. Patrick's. We now have an exterior shot. This is just outside of Catholic Charities. And Bill, again, the Pope is with gestures, teaching us something by making this visit, adding it on, like the Little Sisters of the Poor. You know, he picked up the phone and called the dissidents in Cuba. Now he's visiting with the homeless. This is his kind of subliminal messaging almost to the rest of the world about where his heart is and where we should be going as a church and a people.
Well, God knows I stand with him in the concern about the homeless. I wish that the problem of the homelessness in this country was a function of a lack of housing. In fact, what we have is a conflict between civil liberties and the needs of these people, a large percentage of whom are mentally ill. And the reason why they're on the streets and not in the homes is precisely because of the paramount influence of civil libertarians. That needs to be said.
Good point. Very interesting point. Father Jerry, your thoughts?
You know, I was very struck by the Pope's speech because it's about St. Joseph, and St. Joseph is both a contemplative and a man of action. And St. Joseph, and Pope John Paul II had written about this when he was Bishop Wojtyła. There are no recorded words of St. Joseph, as we know in the Scriptures.
That's right.
And that kind of symbolizes that closeness to God doesn't require speech, it requires contemplation. On the other hand, he was the one who protected the infant Christ, bringing him to Egypt and then bringing him back out. And that really, I think, is what the Pope is doing right now. First, they were in church. He spoke, of course, but the parishioners and the congregation was listening and meditating. Now he's going to go do the work of the Lord. It's not like he's changing scenes or essential actions. He's doing the same thing in different ways, serving the Lord.
Robert?
You know, we're already seeing some distortions in the press. It's talking about environment, immigration. They're not speaking up about the pro-life message. But I just got an email from a brilliant Jesuit priest of my acquaintance, and he said, I think the Pope is having a pretty good day. And I think he meant both in terms of Congress and in the way he spoke about the poor there. It's Francis, it's classic Francis today.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people are making, casting great light on this part of the speech. I know exactly, I highlighted it. It's the only thing on the page I highlighted because he referenced Laudato Si, his environmental encyclical, and in it he says, I call for a courageous and responsible effort to redirect our steps and to avert the most serious effects of the environmental deterioration caused by human activity. I'm convinced that we can make a difference, and I have no doubt that the United States and this Congress have an important role to play. Now is the time for courageous actions and strategies aimed at implementing a culture of care. And he goes on then about combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and protecting the environment. And a lot of the emails, indeed the tweets, some of them I'm not going to read, but because they're a little direct, but they're concerned that the Pope didn't use that sort of direct language and repeatedly drive home the message of life and marriage in quite that way. He was much more oblique in those two messages, though they're clearly here in the speech.
Well, now the president of China's come in, and he's responsible for most of the pollution and disregarding any concern for the environment. Hopefully he'll listen to what the Pope said.
Okay.
He's also responsible for a lot of abortions.
That's exactly right.
The one-child policy.
Yeah, and then capital punishment is primarily practiced on the overall statistical basis. Red China leads capital punishment throughout the world, so they could use a little bit of reflective meditation on what the Pope said.
Now, no, this message is for the world, and I think there are at times, people, and no doubt in the coming hours, this will be parsed and used to, strike various policies. Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey is standing by, pro-life stalwart, former head of the pro-life caucus. Congressman, very quickly, your reaction to what you heard from the Pope today.
That way just a little bit. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was very, very happy that he called for a defense of human life at all stages of development. He talked about how the family was under siege as never before, he believes, which we all believe as well. I like the way he linked the golden rule, do unto others as you do unto me, with defending life. And unfortunately, yesterday at that political rally headed up by the Vice President and President Obama, there you had President Obama talking about the least of these when he is the abortion president, when he is defending a group and saying he'll veto any bill that defunds Planned Parenthood, which in and of itself has done 7 million abortions in the United States. The least of these, the quintessential example of the least of these, are unborn children. So Obama wrapped himself in the Pope, but today, I believe at the joint session of Congress, he made very clear that family and life are the reasons why he's come to America. And he actually said it, of course, yesterday when he spoke to the bishops.
He did indeed, and he repeated it today. Congressman Smith, I'm sorry we have to break away. We're waiting for the Pope to exit here. But thank you so much, and we will check in with you as these days roll on.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are seeing live footage. This is the side of Catholic Charities in Washington, D.C. And you can see the Vatican, and there's Monsignor John Ensler on the right, who is the director of Catholic Charities in D.C. The gentleman with the gray hair there just stepping out in front of the Pope. The Holy Father coming out to this, it's been described to me as a tented area where he will serve the homeless and spend a little time with them. He just blessed a chapel inside. There's a new chapel they built. This was an old school, and it's been converted into Catholic Charities. They serve the poor. They offer legal services to the poor and immigrant communities. And I think on Wednesdays they normally have a lunch for the homeless. So now's a good time to break out your boxed lunches and sandwiches at home. If you're Bill Donahue, to crack open a beer. And
how would you ever guess that?
I don't know. I don't know. Just a wild guess, Bill. The Holy Father is only going to be here for a short time because he will leave this event and make his way to Andrews Air Force Base. And from there, we are going to join him, all of us together, in New York City. The only one who won't be with us is Bill Donahue until later in the week. But Bill's been here, you've been here in D.C. doing a lot of media as well as attending the papal events.
I'll come back tomorrow at noon.
Bendiga los alimentos, en nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo.
The Holy Father's blessing someone here.
Today is a double St. Patrick's Day, I should note, because he's visiting St. Patrick's Parish, a very old parish in the Archdiocese of Washington.
Yes,
and then
one of the oldest.
Yes, exactly. Theodore Roosevelt visited there, I should note. Yes. And he will then visit St. Patrick's Cathedral, where I was ordained a priest by John Cardinal O'Connor, and that's going to be a wonderful event because Cardinal Dolan has renovated, restored, cleaned the cathedral. It's absolutely magnificent. They've been able to get all the scaffolding down, and the cathedral will, in its glory, be seen by the Pope. But of course, the most beautiful thing about a cathedral are the people who were there, and that will be a Vespers with priests, nuns, religious seminarians, and lay people, and it's going to be quite a sight. So it's wonderful. St. Patrick, the patron saint of the Archdiocese of New York, and here in Washington, a very important saint.
Yeah, this is quite a scrum here at the Catholic Charities in Washington, D.C. This is EWTN's live continuing coverage. You are seeing images of homeless people who are invited to this lunch, sort of crowding in. They all have iPads and iPhones. They're very kind of prosperous homeless people. In one respect, everybody's got an iPhone. Trying to get a picture of the Pope.
This looks like when the Pope was in Brazil. Remember, the massive crowd came around him, and That's what he likes, by the way. This is not something
he likes that
finds
personal encounter.
difficult. Exactly. We're up close and personal, as
Yeah,
they
this
say.
is G Street, just outside of Catholic Charities. These meals are provided on Wednesdays by St. Maria's Meals Program, and they are providing the lunch today. It was unclear whether the Pope was going to have lunch with the people here or simply serve them. We aren't absolutely sure of that. But in moments, we will see it all live as it happens. The Pope said, I too am a son of a great continent from which we all have received so much and toward which we share a common responsibility. He said that to Congress earlier today. And some are saying, there's a lot of questions here on the Twitter account and on the email asking for clarification. They're worried it was too political, that people are trying to politicize it. The Pope himself had a great quote in 2013. Pope Francis said, "A good Catholic meddles in politics." Mm-hmm. And if you read his biography, he was actually a very political man, and I would argue continues to be in some ways politically astute. He's doing all of this quite deliberately.
Let me make one quick observation. He was asked here not too long ago, what are your positions on various issues? His answer was magnificent. My positions are the positions of the church. Why are people attributing to him he's a leftist, he's a rightist, he's what? His positions are the position of the church. The church has always been left-leaning on socio-economic issues. It's always been right-leaning on moral cultural issues. He may bring them into stark relief because of his flamboyant personality, but he's a son of the church.
Great point.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants the holy water sprinkled on their
Sure.
preferred political positions, of course, but I take it that his conclusion of this long speech that he gave in Congress, in focusing on the family, tells us something important. Because, as he said, he came here primarily. He said to the bishops, "I really appreciate how you have defended life and the family, and that's the primary reason why I came here to the United States." Now, he added Cuba on. He's got the canonization. He's got the UN speech. But I think he's already starting to prepare people that, don't give up because you hear this or you hear that. I'm here, and follow me all that way to Philadelphia, and you'll hear the heart of the reason why he came to the United States of America.
And here you see him intermingling with the human family, the extended family, the people he called brothers and sisters, in this tent set up outside of Catholic Charities. It really is it is a melee for security. And the reason I spoke to the Secret Service last week, and they said that they decided to create a tented area because they thought they'd have enough difficulty sort of keeping the Pope safe with hundreds of invited guests. There are 200 people here plus. They didn't want any air access to the Pope from surrounding buildings, because this is surrounded by buildings. This is on G Street here. So you see him really reaching out, touching the disenfranchised, those without voices. This he loves. This is at the heart of his ministry. It's what we heard him calling the Congress to, and part and parcel of the speeches we heard in Cuba.
Absolutely. And, it's something we need to remind ourselves of, that the charity that the Catholic Church expresses through its organizations is all motivated by the love of God, by this life of prayer he just has prayed and spoke in the church. And charity is not, as the Pope reminds us of, it's not a non-governmental organization, so we solve a problem, get people out of the way, make the place, a little more proper and tidy. No, we're here to pick up people. The Pope uses the idea of the field hospital. Bill Dunne is absolutely right. We know that so much of homelessness is not dealing properly with mentally ill people, with people who are drug abusers. Catholic Charities tries to do what they can in that regard. And in this case, they're giving a real good example to the Pope of what America's really all about, taking care of those who are, sick and homeless and needy. More lasting solutions should be found, because I personally, as a Catholic priest, find it disgraceful when I see people who can basically lose all their dignity in a park. We have a park across the street from us, drinking alcohol, using drugs, whatever, and the police can do nothing because the civil libertarians say you can't arrest somebody like that. That's not how we should treat people in the United States. It's a disgrace.
And New York City Police Commissioner Bill Bratton has said that under Giuliani, they had a lot more opportunities to help these people. It's gotten worse. The civil libertarians have won the day. At what cost? These people are not don't have their own mental faculties. They're suffering on the street. You can see them. I see them every day in Penn Station as I come in from Long Island. And you also have some others. There's an able-bodied white man who sits in front of my building on the sidewalk. He's in his mid-20s, and he has his sign up. Right in front of him, there's a sign of Dwayne Reed that says, "Help Wanted." So there's also that element as well.
No, it's true. And, you know, the homeless thing does show the good heart of the American people. We want to help people who have no place to live. But a lot of these people I see them, I talk to, they sleep in the front of my church sometimes. I say, well, why don't you go to the shelter? I don't like the shelter. I don't want to go to the shelter. So, you know, what we do here is, and what the Pope is doing, we'll give them food, comfort, aid, pray for them, hopefully guide them. But the civil government has a real responsibility to make sure that homeless people would like shelters. So they'll go to a place where they're safe and not threatened and where they can find, you know, guidance and assistance. That's really, we have enough money in this country to do a lot of things. We should be able to solve this problem.
Yeah, the Pope said it was a lack of love. It's a lack of charity. It's a lack of solidarity is really what he's really getting at. And that is an element of it because people don't want to go out enough. But there are societal elements, as Bill mentioned earlier. There are an awful lot of people who are mentally disabled, who are just released onto the street, people who are suffering from mental difficulties.
There was a mistake about 50 years ago. There was an attempt to deal with these snake pits, which are what a lot of mental hospitals were. So many people, we tried to get them out. We thought there would be community clinics so that they could get their medications, live in society as a whole. It didn't work out that way. What generally happened was that they were dumped out. And then when family or friends could not take care of them any longer, they end up on the street. And that's not the most humane way to deal with the problem.
And we were looking at live coverage of the Holy Father visiting this luncheon for the homeless. He is on the street, on G Street, making his way through this very thick crowd. You know, this is the one venue, I have to say so far, that is not... you don't have people behind barricades, or there's no distance between them and the Pope. This is a real, for security, I'm sure, an enormous headache.
They're all, I'm sure, cleared before they got into that closed space. But on the other hand,
they magged everybody.
Exactly. On the other hand, it is a nightmare because security wants to make sure the Pope always has this bubble around him so that nobody could do him harm or.
Can you imagine the Vatican going to the Secret Service and saying, "We're going to invite 200 homeless people to meet with the Pope. Can you guys handle that?"
Well, Bill, you went through security twice yesterday.
Right.
It was pretty onerous.
It was, and I think the security here is great. Don't get me wrong. I will say one thing: coming from New York, in terms of protests, as you know, there's 5 or 6 out there. New York would have them barricaded off much more securely than when here. I was struck by the fact that they're simply right across the street had fairly easy access. New York actually takes, I think, even stronger precautions in terms of protesters. They're talking about women's ordination. I kept saying, I talked to a reporter from the Washington Post. Did they ever hear of the mainline Protestant denominations? I mean, you can join them. If you run down the street before they close their doors because they're collapsing, you might be able to join.
Bill, always ecumenical.
Well,
Ecumenical Bill.
Just telling the truth, that's all it is.
Truth is a tough thing to swallow.
The Catholics shouldn't be telling people to convert to something else so that they can be ordained, Bill. Sorry.
That's right. No, we want women who want to be priests. We got to say, pray over it, lose that dream, follow Christ.
You know,
in the
as soon as they make the Sisters of Life priests, then I'll be happy. They're not interested in them. These same people, I have to say this, worked against Mother Teresa. They were against the lighting of the Empire State Building in 2010. Every one of these Catholic woman dissident groups. So much for sisterhood.
No, Mother Teresa, her nuns, the Sisters of Life, everybody realizes those are authentic Catholics and they accept the doctrine of the faith.
Exactly.
To turn Christ ordaining men priests into a cause for hating the church, that is horrendous. The Catholic Church is an act of love from God, and if God established that only men could be priests, thank the Lord. Let's make sure our priests live holy lives. That's what we need to do.
Exactly. Well said.
And we are watching Pope Francis make his departure from this Catholic Charities event. And you know, so many, as I watch this, I'm thinking of the Little Sisters of the Poor, Mother Teresa, the Missionaries of Charity, the Vincent de Paul Societies, the groups that have, Ozanam in different parts of the country, that reach out and provide care, the the CFRs, the Father Benedict Rochelle's orders, Franciscans for the Renewal. These groups are, not only do they help the homeless, they live among the homeless and the indigent and the poor, and with them.
And it's not the Dominican Sisters of Mary the Eucharist and Mother of Sumter Long who get invited to the White House. It's Sister Janine Gramick. That's what really gets me about this.
No, there are such heroic sisters, brothers, these orders that day in and day out live the social justice that I think the Pope and others are calling all of us to, that the President saluted yesterday during that welcoming ceremony. It is a tragedy that those men and women weren't invited, that the CFRs weren't present. I did see Mother Agnes of the Sisters for Life at the outside of the Congress today.
Yes,
on the West Front. But that's a different, that's different from being invited inside, and certainly to the White House welcome, which they have more than merited. Ditto for the Little Sisters of the Poor and others. The Pope, in his fiat, taking his leave. Now he's headed to Andrews Air Force Base, where he will, like us, start heading to New York City. And there you see the last images of the papal vehicle. Last thoughts, gentlemen, because we have to be on our way so we can catch up with the Pope for part 3 of this journey. We had Cuba, we have Washington, next stop New York, and then on to Philly for the World Meeting of Families. I'll start with Bill. Final thoughts on this day, Congress, and then seeing him.
He's off to a phenomenal start. I think he's going to end the same way. I'm very proud as a Catholic, as a New Yorker, proud to be here in Washington with you and with Bob and with Father Murray. I get so angry when people are trying to parse them on the left and the right. And by the way, we're getting a lot of people on the right coming to the Catholic League saying they don't like the Pope because of this or that. Take a deep breath and listen to what the man says.
Bill Donahue, thank you so much. I'm glad you joined the panel. Bill, you should have been here all week. We needed the spunk.
I just got out of the hospital last week.
Oh, don't talk about that. You're going to be fine. I'm the one who's going to need the hospital after this week. Robert Royal.
Yeah, well, now we go to the UN. And that's going to be another tough act. And let's hope he's got the same degree of balance, because if he kind of hunkers down on the environment question, which he's likely to do, and then the global refugee problem, I think those are the 2 issues that we'll see come up there. But we also want to see him talk again about life. I mean, this is really the balancing thing that helps. The Vatican has been telling the UN, yes, we're in favor of climate action, but limiting population, abortion, contraception, these are not the ways to solve those.
Well, as people are
problems.
saying here, are climate change and a migrant crisis, is that really being contested morally today? That's the question they're asking. That's not a comment from me. Father Gerald Murray.
Popular causes, but no, what I really struck by this day, the United States of America today welcomed the Pope, the pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church. He spoke freely at length, gave his moral encouragement to this country. This is a free country in which religion is respected. Religious leaders are treated with the kind of respect they deserve. And in particular, Christianity, which is at the foundation of this country, now has its chief representative addressing the nation. I find that very moving.
And that concludes our coverage for now. Join us later this afternoon at 3:45 p.m. for live coverage of Pope Francis's departure from Joint Base Andrews on his way to New York City. We will see you there. Check EWTN.com for the schedule in your area. Our comprehensive coverage of Pope Francis's journey continues on our EWTN Facebook page. And for the latest updates, you can follow me on Twitter at Raymond Arroyo. I'll be updating our travels as well, gentlemen. On behalf of Robert Royal, Father Gerald Murray, Bill Donahue, President of the Catholic League, and the entire staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. We'll see you this afternoon. Bye now.